understand that Jesus was talking to a group of people which isn't people today. So when he was talking to those people, they were Jewish people under a Judaistic religious system that Jesus knew was coming to an end. So he was talking covenantally, not personally. Part of the problem is people read the words of Jesus and they think, well, that must apply to me. Oh no, what happens if I'm not faithful? Or what happens if this and what happens? And they get into fear about it. Jesus in Matthew, Mark, and Luke was talking to the Jewish people and the people of the day that he was trying to get to follow out of the old covenant system into the new. So when it talks about there what seems to be judgment, it's talking about the system.
Wow.
So those who may not be operating under the old covenant system, and that could be seen as the Gentiles, or it could be seen as Jewish people who weren't following the law or fulfilling the law, and now that's everybody actually. But there were those who were self-righteously believing they were keeping the whole law. Pharisees, Sadducees, all of those people, they thought they were keeping the law, therefore they were self-righteous. And Jesus said, well, I've not come to call the righteous. Those who think they're righteous and think they're living a life which is thing, they're not going to listen to me. They're going to keep following their old system. So the covenantal system was going to come to an end. And those who weren't following it or knew they couldn't follow it were going to end up following a new covenant system in which they realize it's all by grace, not works. Those who maintained following that system were going to end up in Jerusalem with the destruction of Jerusalem, which was the symbol of the structure, the end of the temple, the end of the heavens and the earth, which is what they called the temple. And their whole thing became obsolete and faded away and ended. So that's really what it's talking about. It's not talking about individuals. So Jesus was talking to them about their whole way of life. And that was a law-based way of life, which failed, which is why Jesus challenged their views. You've heard it said, hate your enemies. I say unto you. You've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I say unto you. So he was challenging their beliefs, which were based on a system of law, so that they would realize that that system had failed. They couldn't keep it, because he also said, all you are weary and heavy laden. In other words, all you are burdened trying to keep all these 613 laws, follow me. Come to me and find rest. So when you look at it from that perspective, you've got to see, just because there are red letters of Jesus's words, not all Jesus's words were speaking to today. Most of them were actually speaking within the context of the Jewish people under a Jewish system, which was coming to an end.
Yeah.
That is the audience that were listening. That's the context to which he was speaking. In John's gospel, you get a very different view, because John's gospel was Jesus talking to the disciples who were following him and who were not going to follow that system, but were going to follow who he was. So he described himself. I am, which was the name of God. I am that I am. But he then added different aspects to I am. I am the bread of life. Well, they would have had a perspective on the manna which came out of heaven, or Passover bread and all of that thing. So there's a culturally significant statements about what was the bread that came down out of heaven. Me, eat my flesh, drink my blood, which was a challenge to them, of course. But he also described himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the good shepherd. I am the door for the sheep. You had these statements which described him being the one that would be the entrance into the Father. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father but through me. So he was opening up a whole different realm. And then he talked to them about a new commandment, which was a new goal. Hey, You don't have to follow the law. I'm giving you a whole different way of living. Here it is, let me love you so you can love other people. Complete change of emphasis, away from looking to tell them about, the warnings that were coming, because he warned in Luke, he warned in Mark and Matthew about the destruction of Jerusalem was coming and the signs that would follow that destruction or lead up to it, and what would happen that was the end of their world, because it was the end of their world, because their world was a religious system, and that was the end of their world, and what was the new covenant that was to come. And so Jesus gives them a completely different mindset. Abide in me. I am. Follow me. And he warned them. The same warning, don't follow this system, follow me. But he then also told them that this new life was coming. I am in the Father and the Father's in me, and you will know that on the day that I come back from resurrection and bring you into that life. So it's not just people who know Jesus who are free from judgment. It is those who are the new mankind that Jesus breathed life into and were resurrected out of the death in Adam into the life that's in Christ. So the whole of humanity went into death with Jesus on the cross, and the whole of the humanity came out of death in resurrection life and are now born from above. The whole goal is Jesus revealing himself to that humanity so they would actually enter into the truth and reality of what he's already done. So there's completely different perspective to, you're no longer under a law that means you have to follow 613 rules, because you never could anyway, because it was never my intention that you would follow rules. But now you can follow me, and I'm going to lead you into the life of the Father. If you enjoy these videos, would you please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe? It really does help. Thank you very much.